New Jersey sits directly across the Hudson River from Manhattan. We're talking about a few hundred feet of water. That's it. And yet, for most of the early 20th century, New Jersey might as well have been on the other side of the planet. If you wanted to cross the Hudson, you took a ferry. That sounds fine until you think about what that actually means. Ferries run on schedules. Ferries don't run at night. Ferries get canceled when the weather turns bad. And in a city that never sleeps, a crossing that shuts down after dark is basically useless. Workers, families, business owners on the New Jersey side, they were all hostage to a river. Manhattan wasn't a commute. It was an expedition. Something had to change. The idea surfaces first in 1923 when a man named Darwin R. James proposes building a vehicular tunnel under the Hudson. A tunnel, not a bridge. You go under the river, not over it. It's ambitious, maybe crazy, and for years it stays exactly where most ambitious ideas stay on paper. The Port Authority formally picks it up in 1930, but 1930 is a terrible time to propose an expensive infrastructure project. The economy has just collapsed. Banks are failing. Bread lines are growing, nobody is building anything. Then Robert Moses gets involved. Moses is the man who seems to have a hand in every major piece of New York infrastructure being built in this era, and he's not interested in obstacles. In 1933, he secures the funding through the New Deal's Public Works Administration. The federal government needs jobs programs. Building a tunnel under a river employs a lot of people for a long time. Suddenly, the project makes political sense, not just logistical sense. Mayor LaGuardia is on board. He sees it both ways at once, a bold piece of regional infrastructure and an emergency lifeline for unemployed workers. Build the future and feed people in the present. Not a bad deal. Then comes the name. The tunnel will be called the Lincoln Tunnel, after Abraham Lincoln. And that choice is not accidental. Think about it for a second. This is a structure that literally connects two states, burrowing under the river that divides them, named after the president who refused to let the nation be pulled apart. A tunnel about connection, named after the man who made connection non-negotiable. The symbolism is doing a lot of work here, and it earns every bit of it. On May 17, 1934, construction officially begins. Workers start digging into the riverbed from both sides simultaneously, the New Jersey side and the Manhattan side, with the two tunnels needing to meet perfectly in the middle beneath a living river. Nobody said this was going to be easy, and it wasn't. So how do you build a tunnel under a river? The honest answer is very slowly, very dangerously, and with a lot of men who had no better options. The workers who dug the Lincoln Tunnel had a name. They were called sandhogs. And if that name sounds unglamorous, that's because the job was unglamorous. These were men working in the dark, in the wet, in spaces barely large enough to move, 97 feet below the surface of the Hudson River. Above them, the river kept flowing. Around them, the pressure kept building, and the work kept going regardless. Here's the problem with digging underwater. Water wants in, constantly. So to keep the tunnel from flooding while construction is underway, you pressurize the work zone. You pump air in at high pressure to push the water out. Simple in theory, brutal in practice. Because here's what high pressure does to the human body. If you go from normal pressure to high pressure too fast, or back again too quickly, nitrogen bubbles form in your blood. It's called the bends. It can cripple you, it can kill you. So the sandhogs couldn't just walk in and out of the tunnel like they were punching a time clock. They had to pass through a series of airlocks, each one slightly more pressurized than the last, letting their bodies adjust in stages on the way in and decompress in stages on the way out. Every shift, twice a day. One wrong step in that process and a man could end up paralyzed. And these men were working fast anyway, because the longer you spend at high pressure, the greater the risk. Speed and caution pulling in opposite directions, 97 feet underwater. Then there's the engineering problem. The tunnel is being dug from both ends simultaneously. Teams starting in New Jersey, teams starting in Manhattan. Both of them burrowing toward each other through the riverbed. And they have to meet. Not approximately, not close enough. They have to align precisely in the middle, underneath a river that is actively trying to get into their workspace, using surveying technology from the 1930s. The margin for error is basically zero. At its peak, 2,800 workers are employed directly on the project. They log a combined 6.3 million working hours. And that's just the people at the tunnel itself. Across 40 states, workers producing materials, steel, concrete, equipment, contribute a combined 15 million hours. This is a national project dressed up as a local one. The center tube alone runs 8,216 feet. That's the longest of the three that will eventually be built, with reversible traffic lanes designed to handle the flow in both directions, depending on the time of day. Every foot of it dug by hand, under pressure, in the dark. The final bill comes to $85 million. In today's money, that's more than $1.5 billion. For 1930s America, it's an almost incomprehensible sum. But after years of airlock shifts and near misses and backbreaking labor, the first tube is finished. And America is about to find out what they built. December 21st, 1937. The Lincoln Tunnel is ready. The opening ceremony is not a quiet ribbon cutting. This is a full production. There's a military parade on the New Jersey side. Aerial bombs are detonated from ships on the river. Mayor LaGuardia speaks. The governors of both New York and New Jersey speak. For a country that has spent the better part of a decade watching things fall apart, this is exactly the kind of moment America needs. Something finished. Something working. Something genuinely, undeniably great. And then there's Homero Cotton. Cotton is a salesman from Manhattan, and he has a hobby that borders on obsession. He likes to be first. Not metaphorically, literally first. He was first across the George Washington Bridge, first onto the 8th Avenue subway. He has made a small but earnest career out of showing up early to the openings of major New York landmarks and simply waiting longer than anyone else is willing to wait. For the Lincoln Tunnel, he waits 30 hours. Think about that. 30 hours in a line in December in New Jersey to be the first car through a tunnel. And when the moment finally comes, Homero Cotton drives through. The first human being to travel the full length of the Lincoln Tunnel in a vehicle. A salesman. Of course it's a salesman. But what his 30 hours actually tell you is this. People understood that something historic was happening. This wasn't just a road opening, it was an event, a threshold. People wanted to be part of it. The practical details are worth knowing. Passenger cars pay 50 cents each way. Motorcycles pay 25 cents. Tractor trailers pay $2. Pedestrians, bicyclists, and animals are prohibited entirely. Heavy trucks are temporarily banned due to capacity limits, and a minimum speed of 20 miles per hour is enforced. You go in, you go fast enough, you come out the other side. Simple rules for a complicated piece of infrastructure. The entrance on the Weehawken side is Art Deco. Sleek, geometric, deliberately elegant. It's designed to feel like the future because in 1937, it is the future. Driving into that illuminated passage for the first time, in a brand new car, in a country that is just beginning to believe in itself again, is something close to a religious experience. This is what civilization looks like now. This is where we're headed. Then the war comes, and the tunnel gets a second identity. The United States Army looks at the Lincoln Tunnel and declares it strategically vital to national defense. A direct link between Manhattan and the industrial regions of New Jersey is not a convenience during wartime. It's a necessity. The second tube is fast-tracked. Construction resumes in 1941, and the North Tube opens on April 18, 1945. A tunnel built for commuters becomes infrastructure the country needs to survive. After the war, the math changes again. The economy booms. Car ownership explodes. And the thing nobody fully anticipated starts happening. Families realize that if you can drive to Manhattan in minutes, you don't have to live near Manhattan, you can live further out, deeper into New Jersey. Suburbs expand, populations shift. The tunnel doesn't just connect two places, it quietly rearranges where an entire generation decides to build its life. By 1951, 2 tubes aren't enough. A third is announced. It opens in May 1957. The river hasn't changed, but everything around it has. By the time the third tube opens, the Lincoln Tunnel has stopped being just a piece of infrastructure. It's become something else, a fixture, a fact of life. And for the people who use it every single day, something closer to a ritual. Here's what the numbers look like now. On a typical weekday morning, one lane of the center tube is reserved exclusively for buses. This is the exclusive bus lane, and it is not a small operation. Approximately 1,850 buses move through that single lane between 6 and 10 in the morning, carrying roughly 70,000 commuters into Manhattan. 70,000 people. Before lunch, through one lane of one tunnel. The ridership on those buses alone exceeds the number of people riding NJ Transit's commuter rail into Penn Station. One lane of a tunnel outperforming an entire rail network. And who are those 70,000 people? Not executives, not people in town cars with expense accounts. These are nurses and teachers and construction workers and kitchen staff and security guards. People who couldn't afford to live in Manhattan but built their entire lives around the ability to reach it. The subway serves the boroughs. The Lincoln Tunnel serves everyone else. It is, in the most literal sense, the working-class gateway to New York City. Then there's what the tunnel feels like, because this matters too. People who use the Lincoln Tunnel regularly describe the experience in ways that go beyond simple commuting. You enter in New Jersey. It's suburban, familiar, quieter. The kind of place where there are yards and parking lots and a certain predictable calm. And then you go underground, and you travel through nearly 1.5 miles of pressurized tube beneath a river, and you come out the other side into Midtown Manhattan. The most concentrated, intense, chaotic urban environment in the Western world just materializes in front of you. For regular commuters, that transition becomes automatic. But for first-timers, for immigrants, for tourists seeing it for the first time, emerging from that tunnel is genuinely electric. The city arrives all at once, like a curtain being pulled back. That feeling is why the tunnel keeps showing up in stories. In Stephen King's The Stand, it's the haunting exit from a dead New York, clogged with abandoned cars and silence. The image works because the tunnel is supposed to be the opposite of silent. In Elf, Will Ferrell's character walks through it on foot, and the joke lands instantly because everyone knows you don't walk through the Lincoln Tunnel. It has rules, it has weight. Places that show up in fiction are places that mean something to people. The infrastructure has aged, of course. The helix, the corkscrew approach ramp on the New Jersey side that spirals down to the tunnel entrance, has been under major repair. Tolls have climbed from 50 cents in 1937 to over $23 today, with congestion pricing added on top in 2025. The tunnel that once cost 50 cents to enter now costs more than some people make in an hour. But none of that has slowed it down.